Welcome to today's update on Defence, Capital and State Works pipeline for Western Australia. CFI has 135 projects currently delivered across Australia. That number's changed a little bit since July. Last financial year, a record 20 new projects were added to the capital works approved list, and that added a record $7.7 billion into the program. And then since July, we've seen approved investment grow a further 3%. But then unapproved investment, that is the value of the projects that are in early stages of planning, that sank by 14% as plans were either cancelled or scaled back. Looking a little bit closer, and the good news is the investment pipeline WA is growing. We saw another $800 million in works get approved across the state, and we saw planning commence for another $1.7 billion worth of work, which takes the total pipeline to almost $16 billion in WA. In contrast, Northern Territory and South Australia both saw their budgets contract over the past 6 months, in the short term at least, and they're going to have to wait until the 2030s before that next wave of investment arrives. This slide really tells the story, and we're going to dissect this in some detail. What we see here is in green, you've got approved investment, projects that have already been through Parliamentary Works Committee. And then in orange, we see investments that are yet to be approved. So obviously, those budgets are subject to change, but it is our best indication of what's coming up. And these projects are broken into bases, not projects. Okay, that's important to know. The headline here is more increases at HMAS Stirling. They've had a 38% increase in approved funding since July, and 34% increase in unapproved work, which takes the overall pipeline of Stirling alone to 13.2 billion. Over 16 billion across WA, and 13.2 of that is going to HMAS Stirling. And that really makes it undisputedly the richest base in Australia. Okay, so that's great news if you work for or on behalf of Lendlease, Duratec, Duratec, or if you're one of the consultants who jumped on that gravy train a decade ago, the likes of the RPSs and PhDs and ABRs who are doing the bulk of the design work down there. Looking further afield now, Northwest Cape, the good news is that approvals for some of the work at Learmonth has progressed in the past 6 months. This includes runway and apron works that's being done by CPB and Sitzler to support the KC-30 refuelling tankers up there. There's also fuels resilience program. There's a project up there of $100 million plus that is currently under evaluation. So the tenders closed some months ago. And then there's Project Phoenix, which is coming up for procurement in 2026, which I'll cover a bit later. Looking further ahead at both RAAF Learmonth and Harold E. Holt, and they've both seen their long-term forecasts decline. And also Harold E. Holt has had its forecast program pushed back another year. Not only is the numbers fallen, but the dates have shifted as well. Further north, plans for RAAF Curtin have progressed. So this chart shows that the works could commence there by the end of next year. We know Multiplex is the redevelopment project, and I think CPB also has an element up there as well. So that's good news for those with an eye on that project. And then closer to Perth, there's really not much in the near term for RAAF Pearce beyond what's currently there. There's an air mission training centre that NACP is delivering. But looking further ahead in RAAF Pearce's long-term pipeline has grown by 200 million since July, although you probably have to wait until the 2030s to actually see it. In metropolitan Perth, Campbell Barracks, a near-term budget doubled in November to 80 million with the progression of Project Greyfin that's being delivered by Built. And that was picked up by them in August. Unrelated to that, there's a separate upgrade to the rifle range at Swanbourne, and that's being delivered towards the end of the decade as part of the General Ranges and Training Areas program. Looking ahead, We see a new project, sort of similar size to Greyfin, coming at Campbell Barracks in the 2030s. And last but not least, Irwin Barracks. Poor old Irwin Barracks. The old 11 Brigade will need to make do for now because their long-awaited redevelopment isn't likely to happen until at least 2033, according to this slide. So at least those who are posted to Lewin Barracks will be relieved that they won't be moving anytime soon. So look, in summary, the Forward Works program is a moving target, but it's full of opportunity, but it's not without its uncertainty. I'll get to the near-term opportunities later, but before I just want to talk about the changing nature of defence procurement. So you might have heard of the Defence Infrastructure Panel. This is a group of companies that Defence uses to access a wide range of expertise. So they're best known for their PMCA panel, which is really the top of the food chain. This includes firms like GHDs, KB Oricon. There's many specialist sub-panels in that list as well. And this list goes to touch the floor if I show you the whole thing. There is a QR code if you can download a PDF of this list. And the latest news is that this panel has been added a new sub-panel in the past 12 months. It's a pretty big shift. It's called the Major Construction Panel. And this covers projects over $200 million, right? So what Defence is doing is this allows them to work directly with major contractors. So there's many usual suspects in that list, but we're also seeing a few newer entrants, Seymour White, BMD, some long-term subcontractors have stepped up to primes. Importantly, this panel isn't a national panel. It's broken into regions as well. So not all panellists are eligible for tendering in all regions. In WA, for example, BMD is not eligible. Fulton Hogan, Hanson Yunkin. The defence infrastructure market is a relationship-based market, and this diagram is my attempt at describing the main players within it. So the three yellow boxes are the main sources of capital, the best known being Security and Estate Group in the middle there, typically $3.3 billion per annum. According to the Senate estimates, it's pushing towards $4 billion this coming financial year, which is good news. And those funds are distributed in really three main directions. So I've broken up small, medium, and large. Okay, different businesses play in the different spaces, and many players will use the small projects, the estate works program, that sub $15 million pipeline, to get a foot in the door and then work their way up. But the main point here is that it is very unlikely for a new player to turn up and form a relationship directly with Defence. You're far more likely if you can work your way in via someone with an existing relationship. Okay? And often use this diagram to help clients do a relationship audit and identify companies that they may work with in other sectors that could help give them an introduction. Another important point, contracts. So Security and Estate Group has evolved its own set of contract templates, and these define how the sector operates. They're consistent and they're available online. It's a great resource for anyone who's trying to understand how Defence does business. Getting your lawyers, your legal team familiar with the terms that you'll be dealing with before the tender lands will get you on the right step. And Defence is trialling two new forms of contract now that they really haven't used it for. So the competitive ECI, they've been using ECI more and more, and now they're looking for a project to trial. And the other one is a guaranteed maximum price head contractor contract. So we're looking in the next 12 months to see the first of those come through. Another really important change is the rise in Indigenous procurement. So Defence often uses an exemption under the Commonwealth Procurement Guidelines that allows them to approach a limited group of tenderers instead of going to open tenders. But this saves them time. It also supports government policy objectives, and it just gets the work started sooner. So a lot of positives. So what are the key takeaways here? The Major Construction Panel, together with the increasing use of Indigenous procurement, this is going to shorten procurement periods. So Defence is going to be able to move towards breaking ground sooner. But it also means that there's going to be less work appearing on AusTender. So for decades, AusTender has been that main source of opportunities for the market intelligence. Not anymore. More and more work is being hidden behind these panels and these exemptions. And this means for your businesses that visibility is essential. If your brand isn't visible to those businesses, then you're going to be invisible to defence. All right, so understanding who Defence works with and how they award these contracts has never been more important. We'll move now into the upcoming procurements for the next 12 months. So head contractor and medium works contractors, the only ones in WA are Indigenous procurements. There are a couple of them here. The first one is called Project Phoenix. I mentioned that earlier. And this is going to deliver some facilities and infrastructure for the enhanced high-frequency communication system up at the Northwest Cape, WA. So the scope includes refurbishments to Rough Range receiver site and also the Exmouth transit site. And the contracting strategy here is a single stage tender. It'll be a head contractor construct only, and it'll be released in Q1 2026. So we're expecting the value of the contract to be between 40 and 45 million. And the CFI director is Joe Moritz, and the PMCA is Lindsay Murray from Becca. All right, so this is part of Project Phoenix, which is a program of work around the country. It's the fourth contract in the Project Phoenix program. So worth noting who's won the previous contracts. I can say Duratec's been doing pretty well so far in Project Phoenix.
Who's the DSC for Project Phoenix?
Lucid.
Okay.
So Lucid has at least a majority part of it. WGA did some work on it as well. Next up is the airfield minor maintenance inspection regime. I had this slide here and then I realised it's now a period under PDS. So Oricon is the procurement manager for this, but it's basically part of a national program of minor maintenance of airfields around the country. And previously, Fulton Hogan delivered a lot, if not all of it, over the past 5 to 10 years. But RAAF Gingin is the first cab off the rank there. I think it's Q2. So that's really it for non-panel members. Now look at the major capital work. We've already talked about Project Phoenix, information and communication technology main work. So this is a national program across the country, valued at $450 million. And it includes up to Zone 4 infrastructure works, associated ICT networking infrastructure. And the works will take place across dozens of defence sites nationally under a managing contractor contract that's going to be tendered early in the new year. So this shortlist is being established by the end of this year. I haven't heard who's on the shortlist yet, but apparently the question went around the major contractor panel only a couple of weeks ago about who would want to be involved in this. And so, yeah, we're expecting the managing contractor will be appointed, and following that, they will go out and procure designers to deliver that by the end of next year. It's another project under Joe Moritz. Design services contracts. The first project that, if you're a designer, you need to be thinking about National Maritime Infrastructure Maintenance Program. KBR is the PMCA for this, and they are in the market for a design services contract. So the request for expressions of interest went out in August, and we're expecting a short list of companies to be invited to tender early in the new year. So this is about minor wharves and maritime structures all around the country, including the wharf up there at Northwest Cape, which is one of the more prominent projects in this program. I expect a strong showing from the prominent marine structures engineers like your Oricons, your Beckers and your GHDs. And your Colliers, of course. Next up is probably the biggest design tender I've ever seen. It's $60 to $80 million worth of design work. This is the Guided Weapons and Explosive Ordnance Storage and Distribution Program. The ITR has already been out, and we're expecting the shortlisted tender to follow early in the new year. Think about earth-covered bunkers, hardened structures. These are critical national assets for the storage of explosive ordnance across the country. There's already a network in place, and this is about expanding that. I expect to see a shortlisted consortium made up of the major design players. And importantly, both RAAF Gingin and Learmonth have some significant projects to be delivered as part of this program. And second last, general ranges and training areas. I mentioned Swanbourne is part of that. There's also Bindoon training area. Construction isn't expected until the 2030s, but we're going to spend the next few years fleshing out the plans for these major upgrades to these training areas and live firing ranges.
And that's still not awarded.
I know, still not awarded. The RFT was a couple of months ago.
How was it?
But yeah, still no sign of a contract yet. No. I wouldn't expect one probably until February, March. Next, we've got Henderson. So the aim of this project is to provide a depot level maintenance facility for nuclear powered submarines. This includes graving docks as well as large vessel docking capabilities. And in 2025, Defence sought expressions of interest from interested design companies. And they also ran an RFT for site classification works a couple of months ago. So looking at subcontract opportunities, and the main ones in Western Australia exist at Stirling, naturally, under the Surf West program, the Submarine Rotation Force West program. This is really not to be underestimated. The Defence budget had $642 million set aside this financial year for Surf West. So there is a heck of a lot of construction work going over that causeway as we speak, and there's a lot more to come. And after this financial year, assuming they spend all of that, they'll have another $700 million still to be spent at that base, and it's all about getting the facilities ready for the rotations of US submarines commencing in 2027. So there's an email address on the screen there for getting in contact with the project office if you want to know any more information about subcontracting opportunities. Also at Stirling, there's a subcontract opportunities on another project nearby, which is the additional EO storage facilities. I mentioned Gingin and Learmonth in the 2030s. This is a here and now project, so there's some bunkers that need to be built rapidly, and Michael Demaris from Oricon is the point of contact for that one. PFAS remediation, a new branch was added to Infrastructure Division earlier this year to deal with PFAS. They have a program of work. I only have, this is just for an example, this is one in Victoria where they're doing some remediation at Bandiana. No WA-based PFAS projects yet. It won't be long before they start targeting WA sites. Let's look at Service Delivery Division now. So we've spoken about capital works and CFI projects. So now let's look at what Service Delivery Division has in store. So the Estate Works program is run by Service Delivery Division. Many of you will be familiar with it. A couple of the projects that are coming up in the new year. RAAF Pearce, there's a $4 to $8 million project on some building works that's being run by Oricon. Nikhil, a really approachable guy. He's worth talking to about that. If construction, building refurbishments is part of your capability. We've then got RAAF Gingin. There's an airfield minor maintenance. This is what I spoke about, the airfield runway, so it's a pavement type project. And then Fleet Base West, building upgrade there. Don't know the value of that. That's another one with Oricon. And 3 more, 2 at Stirling and a little one there at Campbell Barracks. Also, the new PDS panel structure comes into effect on the 1st of February. JLL is transitioning from being one of the PDS providers into a program level role. There'll be 3 new firms been appointed. So Oricon and then 2 new companies, so APP and McDonald. Both APP and McDonald have a lot of defence credibility. They've long histories delivering major capital works, and this is really an extension of that. So we're expecting the road shows to recommence in 2026, probably about May, once they figure out an forward works program. So the projects I showed you are just a taster, but I'm sure there'll be a bit more clarity in the new year once they figure out who is getting all the JLLs past projects. Beyond that is what we call the base services transformation. So PBS transformation was part of the wider base services transformation. The news in WA is that Ventia has kept its role as property and asset services provider. So that was previously under the EMOS contract. You probably heard the term EMOS. For the past 10 years, they've looked after both hard asset management and the soft asset management. So what Defence has done now is split those two responsibilities, and Ventia has kept property and asset, and ISS has taken responsibility for living and working services. Good news for those of you who had existing relationships with Ventia, that will continue on. So what does all this mean when we pull it all together? The major construction panel, the indigenous procurement pathways, the upcoming design tenders and the base services transformation. What we're seeing is a pretty clear picture emerging. Defence is moving faster. Now they want to work with fewer visible tenders, expecting a high level of readiness from industry. And that's really why visibility matters and why relationships matter. Opportunity equals foresight comes readiness. If your business can demonstrate foresight, understanding what's coming up, as well as readiness, having the team, the systems in place, then you're well positioned for what's ahead. So whether you're a designer, a builder, or a contractor, success really depends on the preparation. So don't just wait for the tender to appear. Anticipate, align, and be ready to act. With that in mind, I'll just talk a little bit about Mastering Defence Infrastructure. This is the course that's kicking off today. The next one in Perth is in April, just after Easter. The whole idea is to equip your businesses to understand the system, forecast where it's heading, and take advantage of it. Thank you all for attending today. I know your schedules are full, you're winding down towards the end of the year. There's one real message I really want you to take home, and that is that defence is complex, but it's not impenetrable, and the rewards are there for businesses that are willing to assist. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again in the new year, maybe at one of these industry briefings or maybe even Mastering Defence Infrastructure next year.